Welcome back to the table. As always, I'm your host, Chad Tafs. This episode is supported by MK Army Heal Energy, a founding partner of the Roundtable for Men, built for long days in real work. Fuel the fearless. Last week, we talked about the past stealing your present, the one moment in time that caused division between you and a brother, a sister, a mother, a son, a daughter, a friend, and in my case, my dad. We talked about moving past the moment, about not holding on to something that could jeopardize your present and your future. This week, I'm turning the conversation inward. We are going to talk about the man in the mirror. Every single man looks into the mirror every day. Some of us like the man looking back. Others spend all of our time focused on the outside, our weight, our scars, our hair, our clothes, trying to fix our appearance while ignoring our character, ignoring the man we are on the inside. The truth is, the mirror can't tell us if we're a good father, a good husband, a good son, or a good friend. It only reflects what everyone else can already see. The things that matter most can't be measured by a reflection. The mirror reflects your face, your character reflects your life. So instead of focusing on what we don't like about the outside, maybe it's time we start asking harder questions about what's happening on the inside. So today, as you listen, I want you to think about two questions. First, who do you see when you look in the mirror? Secondly, do you like that man? So come on in, get comfortable, and pull up a chair. One thing I've realized over the years is that every man wears masks. Not the kind you put on your face, the kind you put on your personality. Think about it. Most of us have a different version of ourselves depending on what we're around. At work, maybe you're the confident guy, the leader, the one who always has the answers. I know how that is. I've done it. When I was working full time as an AGM at Taco Bell, I had to be the guy that enforced the rules, especially when I was working at a store at Kentucky. The GMs that I worked with at that store didn't really care about what happened there. So when I tried to enforce the rules that I knew needed to be enforced, I was the bad guy. I wouldn't let them just do what they wanted. I had to fire the people that didn't want to get on board with things that I was trying to put into place. The funny thing about it is, on the outside, I looked confident. I looked like I knew exactly what I was doing. But on the inside, I questioned every move I made. I questioned myself all the time. I wondered if I was making the right decisions. I wondered if people hated me. I wondered if I was actually a good leader or if I was just looking like one, trying to look like one. As a man, I have always felt the pressure of having to always have the answers for everything. That is one of the questions I've always asked myself. Why do men always feel the pressure to always have the answers? Is it because that's how we were raised? Were we taught that men are supposed to know everything? Were we taught that asking for help is a sign of weakness? Is it because our families look at us for answers? Is it because we think if we admit we don't know, people will lose confidence in us? I felt that pressure for as long as I can remember. There have been times where people ask me a question, and instead of saying, I don't know, I felt like I had to come up with an answer anyway. Not because I actually knew, but because that's what I thought a man was supposed to do. Maybe you've done that too. Maybe someone came to you for advice. Maybe your wife asked you what you thought. Maybe your kids looked to you for an answer. Maybe your employees expected you to know. And instead of saying, I don't know, but let's figure it out, you carried the weight of believing you had to know everything. Maybe strength isn't always having the answer. Maybe sometimes strength is having the humility to admit that you don't. I have never been able to get an answer from myself or from any other man about that. Another question I have thought of is, have you ever acted tougher at work than you actually felt? Now, around your friends, maybe you're the funny guy, the guy making everyone laugh. Meanwhile, you're struggling inside because a lot of people use humor as a defense mechanism while hiding pain behind the jokes. Have you ever done this yourself? Online, most of us post our best moments. We don't post the failures, the doubts, the nights we stayed up all night questioning ourselves. Social media creates a false image of a perfect life. I've posted pictures where I looked happy, when privately I was questioning everything. I think a lot of us have. Not because we're trying to lie, but because we don't know how to let people know that we're struggling. You don't see the struggles that people go through to get to where they are when they make that post. It makes you look like you have everything together, even when you don't. You sit there and compare your life now to the life that other people worked hard to get to. At home, the mask comes off. Or does it? There are some questions you ask yourself. Does your spouse know the real you? Do your kids know you? Do you even know who you are? I know that is an issue that I have with myself. I don't truly know who I am. I haven't for a long time. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe you are there now. Maybe you've spent so much of your life being what everybody else needed that when someone finally asked you, who are you? You didn't know how to answer that question. Not because you don't have value, but because somewhere along the way you got confused what you do with who you are. People ask me who I am. Am I a dad? A podcaster? A business owner? A soldier trying to get back into the army? Those are all things that I do, but are they who I am? That's one of the big things I struggle with. I am constantly questioning who I really am because I don't truly remember who I am. The kid I was in high school is gone. The young adult I was is gone. The man that I should have been when I joined the army in the first place is gone. I'm always questioning who I am. I'm always questioning which version of me is the real me. We've spent this whole segment about masks, the mask we wear at work, the mask we wear with our friends, the mask we wear online. Maybe the hardest question isn't whether we wear masks. Maybe the hardest question is, have we worn them for so long that we don't know who we are without them? Which version of you is actually you? We become really good at negotiating with ourselves. I'll start Monday. That's with every little thing in life: diets, working out, calling your parents, reading, building a business. All of it is negotiated with inside of our heads for a period of time. I did it with this podcast. I waited for months on starting this podcast. Actually, this podcast took me over a year to start because I kept waiting for a buddy of mine to join me. I was going to do a political podcast. Then I changed my mind and I decided to do it about sports because I'm a diehard sports fan. Then I finally settled on the podcast that you have before you today, one that actually matters in this world. And that's when I realized how many Mondays have passed that I've said that I was going to start it. Busy. That's probably the excuse I hear the most. I'm too busy to work out. I'm too busy to call my parents. I'm too busy to spend time with my kids. I'm too busy to read. I'm too busy to work on my marriage. But let me ask you something. Are you really too busy? Or are you making time for the things you decided are more important? Because every one of us makes time for something unnecessary. We make time to scroll social media. We take time to watch another episode. We take time to play another game. We take time for more fantasy football. The truth is, I'm too busy often means it's not high enough on my priority list. And that's a hard thing to admit. What have you been saying you're too busy for that actually deserves your time? This next one bothers me. This is just who I am. We use that sentence to excuse our temper, our laziness, our selfishness, our lack of patience. We act like our flaws are permanent. But are they? Or have we just become comfortable with them? Think about it. If you said, I'm just a dishonest person, most people would tell you to change. But somehow we say, I'm just impatient. I'm just bad with money. I'm just not affectionate. And we expect everyone else to accept it. Maybe that's not who you are. Maybe that's just who you've become. The mirror doesn't care what you meant to do. It doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you were going to start tomorrow. It doesn't care how many promises you've made to yourself. It simply reflects where you are today. That's why the mirror can be uncomfortable, because it never argues with you. It never calls you out. It never raises its voice. It just quietly asks, is this the man you said you wanted to become? And only you know that answer. I'm not saying any of this to make you feel guilty. I'm saying it because I've had to ask myself these same questions. This episode isn't me pointing a finger at you. It's me standing beside you, looking in my own mirror. I think every man has goals. Lose the weight, get the promotion, become a better husband, become a better father, save more money, read more, start the business, be healthier. Those are all great goals. The problem is, goals don't change your life. Standards do. A goal is something you hope happens. A standard is something you refuse to live below. Think about that for a second. My goal might be to lose 30 pounds. But if my standard is eating fast food 4 times a week, which one's going to win? My goal might be to become a better father. But if my standard is spending 3 hours every night scrolling on my phone instead of spending time with my kids, which one's going to win? My goal might be to build a successful business. But if my standard is procrastinating every day, which one is going to win? Goals sound great. Standards create results. One of the hardest things I've had to realize is that our daily habits reveal what we truly value. We can say our family comes first, but does our schedule reflect that? We can say our health is important, but does the food we eat reflect that? We can say our marriage matters, but does the time and effort we put into it reflect that? Our calendar tells a story. Our bank account tells a story. Our screen time tells a story. Our habits tell a story. Sometimes the life we're living doesn't match the life we're talking about. And I know that's been true for me. There have been seasons where what I said I valued didn't line up with how I was actually living. It's easy to tell yourself you're becoming the man you want to be. It's much harder to honestly evaluate whether your actions support that. I also think we've misunderstood discipline. Most people hear the word discipline and think punishment. I don't. I think discipline is freedom. Discipline gives you confidence because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you prove that your word means something. Maybe that's waking up early. Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's keeping your temper under control. Maybe it's putting your phone down and actually being present with your family. Every time you follow through, you build trust with yourself. Every time you quit, you lose a little bit of that trust. That's why discipline creates identity, because eventually you stop seeing yourself as someone who's trying, you start seeing yourself as someone who does. The same thing goes for integrity. We usually think about integrity in the big moments, not cheating, not lying, not stealing. Those things absolutely matter. But I think integrity starts long before that. It starts with the little things: returning the shopping cart, being on time, calling someone back when you said you would, cleaning up after yourself, doing what you said you were going to do. Now, nobody gives you a trophy for those little things, nobody applauds them, but most people don't even notice. But you will. The man in the mirror notices, because integrity isn't built on one big decision. It's built through thousands of small ones. The mirror doesn't remember one workout, it remembers years of consistency. The mirror doesn't remember one argument, it remembers the way you consistently treat people. The mirror doesn't remember one mistake, it remembers the habits you've built over time. The man looking back at you today is the product of thousands of decisions you've already made. So let me ask you something. If someone followed you around for the next 30 days, would they discover your standards or your excuses? Would they see a man whose actions match his words? Or would they see someone who's still hoping tomorrow will be different without changing anything today? Now, here's the encouraging part: standards can change, habits can change, discipline can be learned, integrity can be rebuilt. You don't have to become a different man overnight. You just have to make a different decision today than you made yesterday. Because tomorrow's reflection starts with today's standards. I think one of the hardest things a man can do is be honest with himself. Not honest with his wife, not honest with his boss, not honest with his friends, honest with himself. Because that's where everything starts. The truth is, most of us don't like looking too closely at ourselves. Because when we do, we usually find something we'd rather not see. Maybe it's our temper. Maybe it's our pride. Maybe it's the way we talk to our kids. Maybe it's the way we've neglected our marriage. Maybe it's our finances. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's a dream we've been putting off because we're afraid we'll fail. Whatever it is, it's easier not to look. It's easier to stay distracted. It's easier to keep scrolling, keep working, keep watching TV, keep telling ourselves, I'll deal with it later, because later feels safer than today. I think that's one of the reasons so many men stay busy. Not because there's always something to do, but because silence forces us to think, and thinking forces us to confront ourselves. Have you ever noticed that? The moment everything gets quiet, your mind starts talking. It reminds you of the things you've been avoiding, the conversation you need to have, the apology you need to make, the habits you need to break, the goal you keep postponing. Sometimes we're not running from other people. We're running from ourselves. And then when life doesn't turn out the way we hoped, we start looking for someone to blame. Our parents, our childhood, our spouse, our boss, politics, money, society, bad luck, this, that. And listen, sometimes those things really do make life harder. I'm not pretending they don't. Some people have experienced things that no one should ever have to go through. But eventually, every man reaches a point where he has to ask himself, what part of this is my responsibility? Not because everything is your fault, but because the only life you can actually change is your own. That's a hard question because ownership is uncomfortable. It means admitting maybe I've been the problem. Maybe I've been making excuses. Maybe I've been waiting for someone else to fix something that I only I can fix. And I've done it. I do it with my dad. One thing I've learned is that comparison can become another way we avoid accountability. We look at someone who's doing worse than us and we think, at least I'm not like him. Maybe you're a better husband than someone else. Maybe you're a better father than someone else. Maybe you've made fewer mistakes than someone else. But is that really the standard? Should the goal be, I'm doing better than him? Or should the goal be, I'm becoming a better man than I was yesterday? Those are two completely different mindsets. One creates complacency, the other creates growth. And I know there are things in my own life that I've had to own. I know there are things that I still need to own, things that I wish I would have handled differently, moments where I let frustration get the best of me, moments where I wasn't as patient as I should have been, moments where I questioned who I was becoming. And I don't say that because I've got it all figured out. I say it because I'm still working on it, just like you probably are. That's one thing I never want this podcast to become. I never want to sit here and pretend that I've got my whole life figured out because I don't. I'm learning right alongside a lot of you. I'm asking myself these same questions. I'm looking myself in the same mirror, trying to become a better man. Not a perfect one, just a better one. Because here's what I've realized: owning your flaws doesn't make you weak, it makes you honest. And honesty is where growth begins. You can't fix what you refuse to face, you can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't become someone different if you keep pretending nothing needs to change. So let me leave you with this. What part of yourself have you been avoiding? And what would happen if today was the day you stopped looking away? It's time for our roundtable reflection. Before we move on, I want you to do something with me. If you're driving, keep your eyes on the road. If you're sitting at home, maybe set your phone down for just a minute. Because I don't want you to answer these questions out loud. I want you to answer them honestly. Now imagine nobody could hear a single word you ever spoke. Nobody could hear your promises. Nobody could hear your opinions. Nobody could hear your excuses. The only thing they could do is watch the way you lived. What would they believe about you? Would they believe you're kind? Would they believe you were patient? Would they believe you were dependable? Would they believe you were honest? Would they believe you kept your word? Or would they see someone completely different than the person you tell yourself you are? Now think about the people who you know you best. Your spouse, your kids, your parents, your closest friends. The people who see you when nobody else is around. If I sat them down at this table and asked them to describe you, would they describe the same man that you have described in your own mind? Or would their versions be different? The question isn't meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to make you think. Because sometimes the biggest gap in our lives is the gap between who we think we are and who our actions reveal us to be. The good news is the gap doesn't have to stay there. Every decision you make, every habit you build, every promise you keep closes that gap just a little bit more. So before we move on, ask yourself one final question. If your actions introduced you before you ever had the chance to speak, would you be proud of that introduction? Let's get back to it. So if you've been listening up to this point, you might be thinking, damn, I've got a lot I need to work on. Maybe this episode made you realize you've been wearing masks. Maybe you've been making excuses. Maybe your standards aren't where you want them to be. Maybe you've been avoiding looking at parts of yourself for a long time. If that's you, I want to tell you something. You're not alone. Every man has looked in the mirror at some point in their life and wished he saw someone different. The difference is some men stop there, other men decide to do something about it. Here's what I've learned: nobody wakes up and suddenly becomes a great husband. Nobody wakes up and suddenly becomes a great father. Nobody wakes up and suddenly becomes a great leader. Those men weren't created overnight. They were built one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is believing that change has to happen all at once. We tell ourselves, Monday, I'm changing everything. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to stop eating junk food. I'm going to read one book every week. I'm going to spend more time with my family. And I'm never going to lose my temper again. Then Monday comes. We miss our workout. We lose our patience. We eat something we shouldn't have. And suddenly we convince ourselves we failed. So we quit. But that's not how growth works. Growth isn't about perfection. Growth is about consistency. It's choosing to get back up. It's choosing to try again. It's choosing to become just a little bit better than you were yesterday. 1% better. That's it. 1%. Because 1% every day looks completely different a year from now than what it does today. Another thing I've learned is that respect starts with yourself. We spend so much time wanting respect from other people. We want our spouse to respect us, our kids, our coworkers, our friends. But here's a question: do you respect yourself? Because that's where it begins. Do you trust yourself? If you tell yourself you're going to wake up at 6, do you? If you tell yourself you're going to go for a walk, do you? If you promise yourself you'll spend more time with your family, do you? Every promise you keep to yourself builds confidence, not because someone else noticed, but because you noticed. Confidence isn't pretending you're the strongest man in the room. Confidence is knowing that when you tell yourself you're going to do something, you actually follow through. That's where self respect comes from. Not from money, not from status, not from followers, from becoming a man whose word means something, especially to himself. So let me ask you something. Think about the man you admire most. Maybe it's your father, your grandfather, maybe it's just a coach, maybe it's someone you've never even met personally. What is it about him that you respect? Is it his honesty, his discipline, his humility, his kindness, his work ethic? Now ask yourself another question. What's stopping you from practicing that same quality today? Not next week, not next month, today. Because change doesn't begin someday. It begins with one decision, one habit, one promise. And maybe that one decision is the beginning of becoming the man you wanted to see in the mirror all along. One thing I don't think we realize enough is that somebody is always watching you. Maybe it's your son, maybe it's your daughter, maybe it's your wife, maybe it's your little brother, maybe it's your buddy at work you were with, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone who's never even told they look up to you. The point is, whether we liked it or not, our lives influence other people. I remember growing up, there were people I wanted to be like, not because of what they said, not because of how they lived, but because of how they lived. Excuse me. I watched the way they treated people. I watched the way they handled adversity. I watched the way they carried themselves. They probably had no idea I was paying attention. They still don't. But that's the thing about influence. Most of the time, you don't know you're having it. I think as parents, sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves to say and do the right thing. We want the perfect lesson, the perfect speech, the perfect parenting moment. But if I'm being honest, I don't think our kids learn from what we say. I think they learn most from what they see. They see how we treat their mom. They see how we react when we're frustrated. They see whether we keep our word or not. They see whether we admit we're wrong. They see whether we apologize. They see whether we help people. They see whether we show kindness. Long before our children become who we hope they'll become, they're already watching who we are. And that can be a little intimidating because it means our actions carry more weight than our words. Think about your own childhood. Who taught you the most? Was it the person who gave you the best advice or the person who lived it? I know for me, some of the biggest lessons I learned weren't from speeches. They were from watching people, watching how they responded when life got difficult, watching whether they gave up, watching whether they treated people with respect, watching whether they were the same person in public as they were in private. That's what character looks like. Character isn't something people hear, it's what they experience. And whether you realize it or not, people are experiencing your character every single day. So let me ask you something. If someone copied your life exactly the way you're living it today, would you be proud of the man they became? Not 5 years from now, not after you've made all the changes you want to make. Today, would you be proud? And that's not meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to remind you that every decision matters, every conversation matters, every habit matters, because someone else may be learning from it. One day, your children will grow up, your coworkers will move on, your friends will tell stories about you, your family will remember the man you were. And I don't think they're going to remember how much money you made, or how many followers you had, or what kind of truck you drove. I think they're going to remember how you made them feel, whether you were present, whether you were dependable, whether your word meant something, whether you loved them well. And at the end of the day, that's the legacy the man in the mirror is building every single day without even saying a word. Tomorrow morning, you're probably going to do what you always done and what you've done 1,000 times before. You'll wake up, walk into the bathroom, turn on the light, brush your teeth, maybe shave, maybe fix your hair. You'll probably spend a few seconds looking into the mirror, and then you'll walk away. Most of us never think twice about it. The mirror has just become part of the routine. It's just another part of our morning. But tomorrow, I want to challenge you to do something different. Don't rush. Don't immediately look at your hair. Don't worry about whether your shirt looks right. Just stop. Look at yourself in the eyes. Really look. Then ask yourself one question. Am I becoming the man I want to be? Not, am I successful? Not, am I making enough money? Not, do people like you? Ask yourself, am I becoming the man I want to be? If the answer is yes, keep going, keep growing, keep showing up, keep becoming that man. But if the answer is no, don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself you failed. Don't convince yourself it's too late. Because here's the truth: every man listening to this podcast has something he'd like to change, including me, especially me. None of us have arrived. None of us are perfect. We are all a work in progress. The difference is some men acknowledge it and some men spend their lives pretending they don't need to change. And I hope you're the first kind of man, because that's where growth begins. Not with perfection, but with honesty. So here's my challenge for you this week. I don't want you to write 10 things you need to fix down. Don't overwhelm yourself. Pick one, just one. Maybe it's your patience. Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's spending more time with your kids. Maybe it's calling your parents. Maybe it's getting your health under control. Maybe it's finally asking for help. Whatever it is, write it down. Then before noon tomorrow, do something about it. Not next Monday, not next month, tomorrow. Because we spend way too much time waiting for the perfect moment to change, the perfect schedule, the perfect motivation, the perfect circumstances. The truth is, those moments rarely come. Change starts when you decide to change, not when life gets easier. One decision, one habit, one conversation, one apology, one workout, one act of kindness. Those little decisions become a different man. And eventually, that different man looks back at you in the mirror. Now, as we close today, I want to leave you with one final thought. The mirror isn't your enemy. It never has been. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't criticize you. It doesn't shame you. It simply reflects the man standing in front of it. Nothing more, nothing less. The man looking back at you is the result of thousands of decisions. Some good, some bad. Some you're proud of, some you wish you could take back. But here's the beautiful thing: the mirror doesn't predict your future, it only reflects your present. That means tomorrow's reflection starts with today's decisions. You don't have to become a different man overnight. You don't have to fix everything this week. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to tell yourself the truth. Because the moment you're honest with yourself is the moment real change becomes possible. One day, you'll stand in front of that same mirror, maybe with a little more gray in your beard, a few more wrinkles, a few more scars. Your life will have changed. Your circumstances will have changed. Your roles probably will have changed. But my hope is that when you look into that mirror, you won't be thinking about your hair or your weight or your age. My hope is that you'll be able to look that man in the eyes, smile, and know that you've become someone worth respecting. Not because you were perfect, but because every day you chose to become just a little bit better than you were the day before. So thank you for pulling up a chair with me today. If this conversation challenged you, share it with another man who might need to hear it. Because every one of us has a mirror, but not every one of us has someone willing to challenge us to look a little deeper. Thanks again for pulling up a chair, and I'll see you next time at the Roundtable for Men.